Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, everybody. Today we're interviewing Donna Walters. She's a top producing realtor and the broker owner of RE/MAX Cutting Edge in Macon, Georgia. She's been helping buyers and sellers over the past 30 years and has a passion that she has enjoyed and will continue for many years to come. She has received numerous awards from RE/MAX and the Middle Georgia Association Realtors, including Realtor of the Year from the association in 2013. She's very active, serving on various associations committees, including being its 2015 president. Welcome, Donna. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Awesome. Donna, before we jump in, can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Sure, I'll be glad to. I think, as you stated, I've been in the real estate business for 30 years. Prior to that, I worked for the railroad for 13 years. I have one son and 3 grandchildren, and then my husband had 2 sons, and then they have children as well. And we've been married 40 years, so they're like my own. So we've got, we're blessed to have a great family, and still selling and plan on continue to selling for quite some time.
Awesome. You said you've been in there doing real estate for 30 years, but is this something you know, from the beginning you wanted to do, or did you just stumble into it?
Well, I didn't really stumble into it. I actually took the real estate course after I resigned from the railroad. We lived in Atlanta when I worked for the railroad, and I wanted to move back to Macon, kind of get out of the rat race. So we came back to Macon, which is basically my home. And I was staying at home with my son, working part-time for someone, and decided to take the real estate course to get into investing in real estate. And the gentleman that I took the course from said, "You have the perfect personality and demeanor and drive to be a good real estate agent. Why don't you come on work in the business?" And so I decided to, and it took off, and I loved it. I mean, it just was my passion.
All right,
and it is my passion.
It is a good incentive when somebody tells you, "Come and work for me." That's a good one.
Well, they can't really recruit in the classes, but you know, he was alluding to the fact that I'd be great in the business. I did actually go to work for him. I started my career at Ficklin and Walker is what it was called back then. It's a great company, and now it's Ficklin and Company, still a great company.
Mm-hmm.
But I've evolved into my own business later on.
You alluded to the fact that you thought you had the perfect personality for that. Why don't you tell us a bit more about these personal attributes, traits, or qualities that contribute the most to your success, and how you think you developed those over the years?
Well, one thing you've got to be is determined to make it in the business. You've got to be goal-driven. Got to set some goals for yourself. I have a very competitive nature, and naturally, when you're in straight commission sales, if you're not competitive, then you're probably not going to make it. You got to be dedicated, you know, to keep on trying. It's a difficult business to break into unless you got to be self-driven. In other words, make sure you get up and get out there and make contacts with people. It's not really an office sitting job. It's a people job. So networking with people in your circle of influence, that's where you really start your real estate career. I actually decided to get out and call on human resource managers, and you know, it was a little bit hard to do, but I called on some of the large companies, went to see the human resource managers, told them I was brand new in the business, and I'd love for them to give me a call, and my business kind of kicked off from there.
Wow, great idea. Can you give some examples or specific examples of how these traits played a role towards your success?
Just never giving up, and like I said, keep on pounding the streets. Another thing that I used to do was ride around. At the time that I got in the business back in 1986, a little bit in the later 80s and the early 90s, there was a lot of new construction, and I'd ride around to the different job sites of home builders that didn't have real estate signs in their yards, and take them a Coke or some water and meet with the builder and tell them I'd love to help them sell their house. And eventually I broke into that way. So you just got to continue to knock on doors. You can't give up.
That's a great example. Hi, Donna. As you know, as a lot of things in life, there's no straight line to it. So, and that success is no exception. So there's ups and downs. Can you talk to some of the major adversities or trials you had to face to reach your goals?
Well, one of the biggest things that interferes with success in real estate is the economy. There are certain things that you can't control. So when the economy goes sour, I called it the real estate tsunami that happened in 2008. Then you've just got to continue on and adjust your business. There was a time in the business that the agents that handled foreclosures were the agents that maybe didn't like to get out and meet the public as much. You know, they're the people that like to sit at a desk and do all the paperwork. Well, when the foreclosure business came along, then they started being some of the top agents out there because they already had that business. Anyway, you gotta stay focused on the business and keep on plugging.
Makes a lot of sense. And one thing I like to ask successful people that went through all these ups and downs is how do you keep going whenever they face huge obstacles? Would you focus on anything special, or how do you get through these moments?
At that point in time, what I've done in my career, when I felt like I was stuck or things weren't working, then I would go get a designation. A designation meaning a certified residential specialist or a GRI or something to put behind your name. And when you interact with other realtors that have been successful and take that education, then it gives you motivation. Or take a motivational course. You know, all sales is basically the same. One thing I say about selling houses is that different than some sales, you can't make someone buy a house they don't like. That just is not part of the business. You're more than likely someone that puts the transaction together and keeps it flowing until it closes. So you just got to make sure that if you get stuck, and I've gotten stuck in my 30 years, or maybe you're unhappy at a company, or maybe you've got a broker you don't like, then you have to back up the punt and go talk to someone that's been in the business for a while and see what they've done and make adjustments. That's
great suggestions, Donna. Now, looking forward, where do you think your business will be the next 5 years or so?
Well, one thing that I like to do, of course, is to continue to list and sell property, keep my circle of business that I've built over 30 years. And we've got a property management department that we're trying to build on that. That's a little bit different aspect of the business, and it's sometimes a little more difficult to handle day to day, but it is lucrative as long as you stay within the guidelines of what federal law requires and Georgia law requires. And a lot of times, homeowners that are property, or leasing out their property, or someone renting a property, they're a little bit more difficult to please than your everyday buyer or seller. But that's where I want to push forward to, is to build it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Go in that direction. For that way, in later years, if I'm not able to get in the car and show property, I can do something else. But right now, I feel like I can still show for the next 10 years.
Sounds like a plan. Now, let's talk to the misconceptions that are out there about working with a realtor. What do you think is the biggest misconception or myth people have about working with a realtor?
Well, one of the biggest misconceptions, in my opinion, is they think that we are all rich, that we all make tons of money. It is a lucrative business, but some people think that when you sell them a house, that one agent is getting the total commission, whatever it may be, whether it's 6%, 7%, or 5% of the sales price. They think you're making that entire amount. What people don't understand is that 9 times out of 10, you're splitting that commission with another company, 50-50. And then if you're an agent and you don't own your company, then you have a split with your company. And then out of your side of the split, your expenses have to come out. So until you build your book of business to a point where you're getting enough business to raise your commission, then it can cost a lot of money to be in the business, and people don't understand that. They don't understand that they need to be as loyal to you as you are to them. So you learn that the longer you've been in the business and have a little talk with folks. And once you educate them, they realize that we don't get paid unless we close a house.
Very interesting. That's a great perspective. Well said. Now, let's talk hypothetically. Let's assume you have a family member that's on the other side of the country, which you can't really help personally, and they were thinking about selling their home. What kind of advice would you give them on selling their home? What should they do or look for?
Well, the first thing I do is tell them to let me help them pick out a realtor in that area and refer them to a realtor. But if they decided they didn't want to do that, and maybe they're going to interview on their own, I would advise anyone who's getting ready to find an agent to either sell them a home or list their home to talk to a minimum of 3 different agents with 3 different companies and listen to what those agents have to say as far as their experience. Not to say that a brand new agent might not do just as good a job as an experienced agent. You just have to listen to what they have in place for the marketing. Listen to what they say about that you need to do to your house and get it prepared to sell before you put it on the market, to be realistic in what the price is going to be. And it really and truly, in my opinion, if everything is pretty well even, it's all who you just mesh with. In other words, if I sat in front of you and you didn't like me from the get-go, then it's not going to work. Or maybe I don't like you. You know, that happens too. There has been time in my career where I've turned people away because I knew right immediately that they were going to be adversarial, and an adversarial situation when you're trying to help someone is not good. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't happen often, but it has happened.
Mm-hmm. Great advice. I love that. Now, to wrap up, do you have one more piece of advice, but this time for the listeners who would like to enter this realtor business, and what should they do to be successful at it?
Well, one of the key things that I would say if you want to be successful in the real estate business, before you ever get into the business, make sure that you have a minimum of a year's worth of what it's going to take you to live money set aside. I used to say 6 months, but that's before the real estate market changed across the country. Macon is still not, we never went really, really down in the gutters like some areas did, and we just don't peak real high. So we're a different market than some. But if you don't have money set aside that will allow you to market yourself to be able to break into the business, or to market your client's property, or to have a nice car and a clean car and to present yourself well, then you're not going to make it. It's going to be so stressful for you that you'll never get out of the gate. So you've got to have money set aside before you get into this business, because it's straight commission.
Wow. This is awesome advice. I really, really like the no-nonsense approach of this. So thank you so much for this, Donna. I really, really appreciate you taking the time for doing this interview with us. So how can our listeners learn more or get in touch with you?
Well, they'll be more than welcome to check out my website. It's www.maconhomes.com. And all my contact information is there, and you can give me a call or email me, and I'd be more than happy to help anyone that's deciding to get into the business, no matter where they are.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Once again, this was extremely insightful, very interesting, so very appreciated. So for now, I'm going to wish you an amazing day, and thank you again for me and my listeners.
Well, thank you. Have a great week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.